What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Trooper Transmission. And today we got my man Noah Pyland in from Florida to come and talk all things nerding out, working out, and having a good time. Thanks for the time, brother.
Oh, anytime. Happy to nerd out and work out.
Nerd out and work out. It's a good time. So let's crank the clock back. This would have been initially we talked before December, but you ended up joining Fit Nerd Academy in December. And so, what
Mhm.
inspired you to initially reach out? Were you following the YouTube, Instagram for a while? Like, what kind of brought this into your awareness, and then what inspired you to ultimately join?
So, yeah, when we were initially talking, I had already kind of found you, like some of your videos, and had tried that out, which I liked, which was a good part of it. Um, but yes, what was initially getting my thing is, I was physically fit kind of in the moment. I mean, not too bad. I wasn't worried about my weight, but I did notice I was starting to kind of have bad habits, just unhealthy habits. Um, I'm in the Coast Guard, so it was a very much like a work hard, play hard attitude. I wasn't taking the off time to kind of go. And I just kind of saw that I was sharing the habits with a lot of like the older people who didn't uh, take care of themselves and physically or mentally, and kind of noticed that that wasn't what I wanted to be like.
Hmm.
So I started to look like, okay, and I've noticed stuff like that in the past and be like, well, I'll fix it. And then for some reason or another, work schedule, kind of something comes up in life. I wasn't able to maintain it as long as I would. It'd be like a month of really hard work, and then I kind of gradually fall off.
Yeah.
So what I really wanted was I kind of figured out was I needed help with just that maintaining, kind of getting tips and tricks to, everyone's going to fall off the wagon, but how do you step back on? Like, first of all, realize that you're off the wagon and then get back on.
Yeah.
So I started seeing like I did like the first month of the trooper things on YouTube, the half hour workouts. And I was like, all right, this guy's legit. He doesn't spout that crap about getting up 5 in the morning for a
Yeah.
keto diet. Like it was very reasonable. Like every video you start off with, hey, if this hurts, stop.
Yeah.
Which I like. It was genuinely like healthy tips that I thought.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of what first got my attention of like, okay, I kind of need help with this. This guy seems reasonable, level-headed, nice guy. Um, and I love Star Wars, so that's why I clicked on it in the first place. I was like, all right, this should be fun and help me out, hopefully.
Yeah. And so you obviously joined. Was there any concerns you had crossing that threshold or making that choice? Obviously, you'd spent some time in the YouTube channel. I am a
Mhm.
guy on the other side of the country, being in Seattle, you're in Florida. But were there any concerns, or were you just like, okay, cool, yeah, like I feel really good based off of what
Oh,
I've seen and what other people have accomplished?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Like we spoke a little bit before I ended up joining. I remember. I think it was like end of October, maybe
Hmm.
early November. So I joined like a month or two after that. Um, but my main concern was, all right, like this isn't something I can just kind of dabble with. It's gonna take a little commitment. I got to put money up for this. Um, and I was in the process of a change with work. I was changing stations, ranking up, and then moving across the country as well. So it was a lot to do there. So I kind of talked that over with you, and we were also on the threat of a government shutdown. So finances were a big part. It was a big
Mm,
financial commitment for me.
I remember that.
Yeah. So we talked about that. You kind of had my concerns, and you're like, okay, well, I'll keep you on the list. And if things go well, we'll talk again. And I was like, okay, he's flexible, which I've got an insane work schedule I kind of need. Um, so that was my big thing there. And then we talked a couple weeks after I kind of got here, and I was like, all right, this is like the time to build habits. So we talked a little bit more, and I put my money where my mouth was literally and started out.
Yeah. And
Put the helmet on.
yeah, to that point, you've put on a good amount of muscle, so you'd also
Yeah,
put your food where your mouth is too.
that's ideally where it's supposed to go. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about, you weren't in you weren't concerned of being overweight, but you've also, from what I can see in your programming and in your program and your photos and your strength numbers, you've made some really big leaps from a strength and muscle development standpoint. And so what do you feel like has helped click so that you stick with the habits or the tips or the little things that you said were missing from you maintaining previously?
Well, a big thing was just getting down to the numbers with calorie counting, kind of like figuring out what I need, talking to you and Marcos about just kind of like, all right, like if this is what you want, this is kind of how you need to um, do it. You're going to want more of this, less of this, and then you're going to want to figure out how much of that you're actually putting into your body. So that was a big part of that, which was still probably one of my weaker points is doing that because I've got an insane schedule, and then yeah, it's boring.
Yeah.
Tracking numbers was never fun for me. But just kind of getting that fundamental thing of like getting towards the end of the day and then look at numbers, be like, all right, I still need a good amount of protein. I'll have a shake while I read, study, or play video games or whatever I'm doing to unwind at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
just a little bit more intentional, it sounds.
yeah, I mean, kind of figuring out because yeah, before it was like, oh, I should have a steak. Steak's high in protein, which isn't wrong, but there's a little more finesse to it.
Yeah.
Um, so doing that and then just a little extra motivation for the days I didn't feel like going to the gym. I mean, yeah, have a crazy work week where I got really behind on sleep, kind of stuff like that. And then all you want to do is come home, drink a beer, and do nothing. And then just kind of that motivation of, hey, you got a workout scheduled for today. Okay. Son of a Gundar. Um, So even if it's not everything like maxing out all the time, it's still that going to the gym, getting at least the majority of your sets in, and doing a quick stretch afterwards, I think has been a big part of it.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And it's not always going to be, the perfect workout, but just doing it
Mhm.
anyway. And you've been super consistent. So for you, if you, let's say you had a younger brother or a younger you even that you could have a conversation with, what would you say are the three things that would provide the most bang for your buck or drive the most results from what you've experienced?
I think kind of touched on it. The biggest thing is one noticing when you're getting off. Just can be like, hey, I mean, sometimes the app is helpful with that of, hey, I didn't track calories the past 2 days. You should probably do that today. Or hey, you missed a run. You should. So just kind of noticing when you're off track. And along with that, in just accepting that that's just how the world works sometimes. You, as disciplined as you are, you could be have the most motivation, things are going to get in the way. That's just life. So being able to kind of recognize it and then accept that it happened and get back on is probably the number one thing. Um, Yeah, number 2 would probably be just the numbers. You don't have to be fluent, but you have to have just a basic understanding of, um, I mean, they say it all the time, but you can't outrun a bad diet.
Yeah.
So just recognize that kind of stuff. Get a blender. It's way easier. Stuff like that. And then honestly, just find a way to enjoy the process. You're not always going to want to enjoy to the gym, but more often than not, I find myself enjoying it and feeling way better afterwards. Even if I don't want to go, you're like, all right, I feel pretty good.
Dude, that's simple. I've never had someone go to the gym, work out, myself included, and be like, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you might like get injured, but that's not that's not like something where you're like, man, I should stop working out. I got injured. It's just like sometimes that happens. That'd be like saying I'm not going to get in my car. I got injured. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I got an offender better, never gonna drive again.
yeah, so it's just like, yeah, you never regret it. And I love that it's so simple in that enjoying the process is one of your keys. But I was thinking about that even as you were talking. Yesterday, I put on a musical set when I was working out, and like in between sets, I'm doing a little DJ pump up. Like I'm just having a good time. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
just gotta have a good time, nerd out, dance, whatever it is, lift the weights, and then go home. And so for you, like What would you say some of the biggest wins you've seen just in the last 4 or 5 months?
I mean, the first that comes to mind is like I put on like I think going on like 15 pounds of muscle, which is great. I was hoping to gain weight, but to actually kind of have that in addition to kind of healthier habits is like the biggest thing. Um, and then yeah, strength is another thing. Gotten weight, uh, 200-pound bench, which is pretty good for my size.
Yeah, it's great.
Um, and then being able to do that without kind of I was worried if I got big, I would lose a lot of like cardio and like I big runner at my mile time would drop down and there hasn't really been any noticeable dip. I mean, I'm sure if I put on another 25 pounds, it'd be a little bit harder, but
Yeah, you got more meat wagon to move down the road.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, for the most part, it's been a very healthy balance, I think.
Yeah. No, physique wise, you look lean and strong.
Thank you.
Performance wise, the numbers are showing up there. And so it's just a testament to you putting in the work, developing those habits, right? And choosing maybe the light side instead of the dark side to use a reference as you were talking
Oh,
about.
there's
Like,
rage metal going sometimes. I'm tapping into both. Don't worry.
that's fair. But you're not going the path of the older guys that you were worried about. You tapped into the light side there at least. So, dude, thanks for sharing your perspective, your tips. And I know a lot of guys who are wanting to either develop habits or put on some muscle will get a lot out of this because
Oh
you
yeah.
kind of simplified it. Like, hey, know your numbers, show up, enjoy the process, and when you fall off the wagon, get back up. And I think that's
Yeah.
great advice.
Perfect. I'm glad I could help. Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Fun out there, troopers.
Yeah.